FOG number 58 is Michael Hancock. Michael played 14 Origin matches for Queensland, making his debut in Game 1 of the 1989 series, scoring 2 tries. Michael played 274 NRL games, all for the Brisbane Broncos, and when he retired at the end of the 2000 season, he held the record for the most games for the club. Michael Hancock was a member of the first Broncos side to win a premiership and was the last of the foundation players to leave the club. Michael also played 13 tests for Australia and was a member of the 1992 World Cup winning side. Fittingly, Michael's final game for Brisbane came in the 2000 Grand Final win over the Sydney Roosters. Well, Michael Hancock, thanks for your time. What does it mean to you to be a FOG?
Proud. I think is probably the word that comes to mind. Through, obviously, sacrifices my mum and dad gave me back in the day, which then obviously leads on to getting that opportunity. I mean, I think a lot of people ask me what's the best thing about being a FOG. I think it's the opportunity to have the family name on the back. It's the only chance that we do as a rugby league player to have your name on your jersey. You know what I mean? And I think that's a reward and a sacrifices that our parents made to give us an opportunity. They take us, left, right, and centre to financial sacrifice as well at the same time. So it's just a proud moment then to have your family name on the back of a jersey, I think. So that would be my proudest part of being a FOG, that people know who I am and what it means to be a Queenslander at the same time.
Your journey to that stage is in some respects a flip of a lot of FOGs who were born in the country and moved to the city for an opportunity. You grew up in Brisbane, but are most probably more people sort of think of you as a country boy.
Yeah, correct. And it's very, I was very close, and I lived on you look at Stanthorpe, and then you get where Billy Moore's from, Wallangarra, which is right on the border. You know what I mean? And then the next little town is Tenterfield. Now, I had a lot of friends in Tenterfield at the same time. Now, when you're 15, 16, you're not thinking about playing Origin. You're just playing football because you love it with your mates. And a couple of my mates across the border had said, can you come down and fill in? We've got a few missing. So I go down, I get there. Anyway, they'd found numbers and they didn't need to play. Well, if I would have played that day, I would have had to play for New South Wales, because where I would have played my first senior game of football. But I would never thought about that in a month of Sundays, you know what I mean? But yeah, and everyone's synonymous with me playing in Toowoomba. I was only 17 at the time, playing the state league against all the bigger teams, and we made the final against Wynnum. We'd beaten Wynnum 2 weeks before, 13-12 at Athletic Oval, fantastic, 9,000 people there. And then the big boys come out to play, and they give us a bit of a whopping in the semi and the final. But all those games were televised on Channel 9. Rob Bruff was the commentator, back in the day. Yeah, so just good times to be involved. I mean, you did it because you loved it. I was going to be a Raider originally. Going to go down there, but again, great players that played Origin were down there at the same time. So maybe I would have had the same opportunities. But like you said, you never think you're going to play. All you want to do is keep playing because you like it, you enjoy it. And you just never know, with a bit of hard work and a bit of perseverance, what can happen.
So what was it like growing up in Brisbane on the north side of the city?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, just growing up being kids. I mean, I don't think a lot of kids actually get to be kids in this day and age. I mean, like it was like making our own entertainment, no mobile phones, get on the train, go to Toowoomba, because that's the old shopping centre. I remember when Thursday night shopping, we thought, holy, how's this? Thursday night shopping. It was a big thing for us back then. And then also you get on your push bike and I'd ride 10 Ks to my mate's place. You know what I mean? A little bit different now when we don't have those opportunities, but those memories and made our own fun. It was just good times to be, I think, a teenager growing up, and enjoying life.
Well, what led you away from Brisbane towards Toowoomba and Stanthorpe?
My grandfather was a milkman back in the 30s in Stanthorpe. He won a grand final. They were called the Gold Tops back in 1938. And so he had ties to that community, that region. And my uncles bought 700 acres back in the late 60s. And my grandmother and grandfather owned another block short of, they owned a rectangle. They owned the square in the middle to make up a complete square. And my father and mother bought that house. It was probably the first house in the district. It was over 100 years old. So it was a good time to grow up. No hot water, no flushing toilet, no electricity. So yeah, I mean, very humbling, and never take anything for granted. Look now, you look at my son has grown up through that period as well, and social media is not a big thing in his life because he's had all this great country upbringing. So there's other things in his life just from apart from that. And it was really good to be part of it. I remember breaking down, going to training, and I had to. There was no mobiles. There's no telephone box around the corner, so you got to walk to see where there's a light. Knock on the door and say, "Listen, look, I've broken down. Do you have a phone? I could ring my father or someone to come pick you up." So yeah, completely different times.
So when a lot of the things you've spoken about, you sort of emphasised the word fun and how much you enjoyed it and all that sort of stuff. When did it start getting a little bit more serious for you and the realisation that you potentially could have a good career? Yeah,
look, there was obviously no Broncos, and in 1987, there was talk of it happening, and I was playing. I'd made a 17s, a 19s, and a 21s Queensland team. Then I made the Queensland Country team. Now that Queensland Country team was back in the day a lead-up game. So you'd play. They had the Queensland residents versus the New South Wales residents, and that's how they picked their Queensland team. And now the Brisbane versus the Queensland Country team was also a part of that. Now no one ever got picked from that team, but you played in it, so that was obviously a stepping stone to thinking, well, I'm only one step below these guys. Making all those rep teams, I said, well, there could be an opportunity. There was no football managers, there was no recruitment officers at a lot of the clubs. It was usually done by the coach, who are usually some people say the best or the worst recruiters in the game. And I've said, being on TV, it was just a natural progression. And Wayne rang me, being at the Raiders, and said, "Would you like to come?" I said, "Yeah, shit, yeah, I would." And then I hadn't signed a contract. He said, "Look, I'll let you finish the season, and then we'll sort something after I was done." But in the meantime, he had signed at Brisbane. And I signed on the dotted line. Big limo pulls up at the front of where I worked, and spare parts, and John Rebo and Porky Morgan jumped out, and my dad was there, and my first coach was there, and signed the first contract for $500, and that was it.
And what were the expectations? Because the Broncos were coming into the competition. You had no real idea, I suppose, as what it was going to be like. What were your expectations when you signed that contract?
I didn't really have any expectations. being a 17-year-old, and I wasn't, and they'd already signed the greats of Wally and Gino and Greg Dowling, Greg Kinescu. I think then people like Joey Kilroy and Brett Tengdale. All these guys had played serious football in Brisbane. So you think, oh, well, I'm just going to come here, I'm going to make up the numbers, I'm going to learn, I'm going to try to become better. I couldn't lift my own weight once. I was 80 kilos when I first came to the club. But after then experiencing that environment and then getting an opportunity at 18, I thought, wow, this could be something where we're going. But again, it's a quick. I remember our first 6 games, and we'd won our first 6 games at the Broncos, and then we lost our 7th game against the Sharks at Shark Park, and we got towed up pretty bad. And Wayne goes, "Right, I need you to go back and play reserve grade." And I thought, oh, okay, it was good while it lasted, And I thought, well, I'm not done here. Like I said, it's just now I've got to go back and I've got to work a little bit harder. I probably need to become a little bit more powerful. I've got to become a little bit more stronger. How am I going to do that? So go and invite and talk to the right people, and work a little bit harder. Got to, when everyone's gone, you've got to stay and maybe do a little bit different. So it changes your mindset. I was very determined, but I didn't know how to go about it. I had a plan in place. In 1987, when the Manly beat the Raiders in the grand final, the double spread. Colour photo from the team, the winning team, put it on my fridge, cut a hole out and go, that's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. But how am I going to do it? How am I going to achieve it? I needed some education on how I was going to plan to do that. And I learnt that being in a professional organisation as the Broncos. And so as I as I grew and as I got older, with a lot more people involved in my life, it helped me immensely. Kelvin Giles was one of those people, and it got better. And then, lo and behold, at 19, I played for Queensland and I played for my country. So it was a telling moment. I was very proud to do all that, because that's what I set out to do. And then I just had to, again, keep working at it, and got to go up the ups and the lows and the ups and the downs.
But you were still a kid when you arrived at the Broncos, with no expectations and no realisation of what laid ahead of you. But you were able to play in the first game that the Broncos ever played against Manly at Suncorp Stadium. What was swirling through your head, a young bloke that all of a sudden is going to run out with, such a massive club for its first game?
Yeah. I didn't know, and I was probably right place at the right time. If you're in the systems now, we have a lot of development squads, academies, and so it's a process and how you go through it. Everyone does that a lot. There's only probably the real elite get the go straight from school, and they can't play until they're 18 anyway. You know what I mean? So, I didn't know what to expect, and I was very obviously optimistic about what I was going to do, and we weren't a big, like Wayne's never been big on skills. It was just probably all natural at that time. You know what I mean? I thought I had enough speed to be able to handle that. I wasn't very strong, but again, fear is a wonderful thing, and it makes you run faster, makes you do wonderful things, But I was very, I didn't have any, I'm going to come out and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I just let it fold down in front of me, and I could only do what I could do, but I knew being in that environment with Wally and Gino, I had to go out and earn their respect. And we're talking guys that played in the 70s, the 80s. And back in those days, it was very forwards versus backs. So when it comes to after the game, the forwards would always vote for a forward and the backs would always vote for a back. And I'm going, well, that doesn't seem right to me. Because if someone gets man of the match, they deserve it. So sitting on this side, and they always said, the outside backs always made them look good. I'm saying, I do that, and they will do all the hard work, and they deserve everything. I said, well, how can I, on this side of the bench, make them respect me and be part of that group? So hence why then the hard work become, right, I'm going to get in there, I'm going to do a lot more work to earn their respect. So I've got to do more work and I've got to do more hit-ups, and my thought process, well, if they're up there because the ball's been kicked down, my job would probably get back to them so they don't have to work as hard. And so all those little processes along the way helped me earn the respect of those players. And then when it got to Origin, the greatest player that played Origin, Wally Lewis, and he could be a little bit temperamental, back in those early days. And so I'm thinking, how am I going to get his respect? I'm going, this is going to have to be, it's going to be really earned. And then I scored my first try in Origin. You look at back through history, all the, especially when he was involved in the teams, everyone on debut or whenever they scored their first try, he was there to pick him up off the ground. I remember Alf when he picked him up, in his arms. And when I scored my first try, he was the first person, to pick me up off the ground. I thought, wow, I think I've earned the respect of one of the greatest players in the world, and that then gave me confidence to continue on the journey.
You mentioned before you were 19 years of age. You're playing for Queensland for the first time after a couple of years before being, in country Queensland. How did you cope with the sudden rise or the responsibility of playing at that level?
I don't think you really realise it at the time. It is another game, but it is at that next level, and the euphoria around Origin, the amount of people, and it was like, when you're playing at the Broncos, we are playing for a team, and everyone grew up and supporting different teams, whether it's the Broncos, whether it's the Bulldogs, whether it's the Roosters, and we were only a fresh young franchise, and we had a small membership base at that time, probably 17, 18, 19,000 people at the time. And then playing for Queensland, they put all those jumpers aside and then they unite the whole state. And you don't realise until you play Origin how big and what it means to everyone to unite to support one team. It's a bit like playing for Australia. Then you get bigger and you play for Australia, everyone puts all those jumpers aside and the whole country unites. So as the step gets bigger, the pressure gets more about, all these people. I don't want to let not only my family, but this whole state, you know what I mean? And then when you play for Australia, you don't want to let the whole country down, you know what I mean? So the pressure gains, but like you said, and you never knew how big and what it meant to people until you actually, you play Origin, you know what I mean? So it was a daunting moment running out on when the McAuliffe stand, the lights are just beaming straight in your head. The Frank Burke stand, and you're in the dressing room, and everyone's banging on the old wooden floors, and you can hear all this noise, and so I'm getting as nervous as shit, going down. They go, what is going to happen here? And because it's the next step, and I play those guys at club level, but this is another level on top of that, you know what I mean, and what it means. And let's face it, Origin is brutal, you know what I mean. I know the 80s in rugby league and the NRL or New South Wales rugby league was brutal, but when you play Origin, it's a next step again. And so I don't know, I mean, like I said, and there was a lot of fear about who you're playing and what's going to happen. So I was probably a little bit tentative in those initial stages, but Tony Curry was experienced at the time, and he was my centre, so that helped me a lot to calm me down. He said, look, just calm. Just think about what you've got to do. Don't forget about what everyone else is they'll do there. You just do what you do. You know what I mean? You're here for a reason. You've been selected through your performances. You deserve to be here. And that gave me a lot of confidence to go out there. And, I scored 2 tries in my first game, scored 1 in the second and 1 in the third. You know what I mean? So it was great. And we were one of the first teams to win 3 games in a row.
You're also the youngest player at the time to be selected in Origin football.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that at the time either, you know what I mean? But look, it was great, you know what I mean? I was chuffed and to be selected, and obviously with hardly any experience whatsoever, you know what I mean? And it's the next stage, and it was, I was again, my parents were probably the most excited people in the world, you know what I mean, for me to play Origin level, because I'd always listen on the radio. We didn't have electricity, we didn't really watch it on TV. It was always on the radio. And I said, Dad, how good would it be to go out there and play this game? It'd be great. And my dad went through a lot of mental health issues. He's a lot of anxiety. So they only come to probably, I think, 1 or 2 of my Origin games. Can you believe? Because he just couldn't handle that pressure. He wasn't playing the game. I felt like he should put the jersey on, because he was a bit like Elf, spewing up all the time and couldn't handle it. You know what I mean? But then I understood that. You know what I mean? And but it was a proud moment, that's for sure. To run out there with that my family name on the back of the jersey.
In one of the toughest eras of Origin as well, and they're all tough, don't get me wrong, but when you look back now at the players you played with in that era, what are your thoughts of being amongst those?
Yeah, look, it's it is what it is. You can't change it, and everyone says who's the greatest players. I mean, I played with some of the eras, and football was hard. Like I said, it was brutal. There was no holding back, and with your teammates that you played with, and then being in that Queensland team, you don't want to let them down, and hence why that battle arena in Origin creates a different beast altogether. I don't know what it is. You really can't. You can say it, you know what I mean? But you don't realise it, and you don't understand unless you're in that zone or in that team at that time. Well, I remember when I was in there, and they said, "Oh, what's it like?" I said, "Well, think about your best 3 things ever in your life." I said, "Well, it's those 3 put together." That's what it was like playing Origin. You know what I mean? So it was exciting times, and you just don't know what's going to happen. I got to play, with great, Wally Lawson. He's in my team. Fatty's in my team. Gino's in my team. You know what I mean? So there were some fantastic players with all this experience, and like I said, I go, "Oh shit, what am I going to do? How am I going to go about doing this?" And I said, "Well, all you can do is do your best, number one. But again, think about the things that you did at Clubland. Well, now you need to bring that here. You know what I mean?" But again, you're part of a team, and you've got a job to do. And my job was to, obviously score tries and get yardage. That was some difficult times, against Blocker and Spud, and all that, with Harrigan and things like that, and Martin Balla and all them. Those contests at the time, it was pretty brutal. So scary but exciting, and it made you think a little bit more about where you ran and how you did it.
Is there any moments in the 14 games you played for Queensland that stand out above others?
Look, 94 try was pretty special. The miracle try, to be part of that. Yep, it's synonymous with a lot of people. Doesn't matter what age you are, because it gets played so much. So that was pretty good. I think the Mark Guy, Wally Lewis, coming off the field in that game, I think that was 94 as well. Don't hold me to that. Coming off. I remember Mark Guy the same game. Wiped me out. I was tumbling and bang, he's knocked me out completely down that sideline. But also, look, can't remember the series where we had a lot of injuries. Alf broke his leg. Mel Meninga broke his eye socket. Bob Linder played with a broken leg. I went off with a shoulder injury late in the game as well. And we got to win that game as well. So just those little things that no one wanted to give up. No one wanted to let anyone down. So it was just great environment to be a part of. And you can probably ask everyone that's played Origin, it's just a special, special time in your rugby league career if you get that chance to put on the maroon jersey. And it'd be the same with the Blues as well, don't get me wrong, because we need both to be successful,
And it's part of your life now, Origin, but you also managed to win a couple of premierships with the Broncos. You mentioned before your Test career. As you look back, as you reflect on the career, young bloke coming from the north side of Brisbane to Stanthorpe through to Toowoomba, etc., you must at times think, wow, that's some hell of a journey.
Yeah, I think it's a learning journey as well at the same time. When we played a little club and then we moved, we went to North for a couple of years, and then I had a broken hand, broken collarbone in the same year, and Dad said, right, you're not playing anymore. And we'd sold everything up and we're living with their grandmother out at Deception Bay, and I wanted my fix. I was going on 14, and I said, I wanted to play, and Dad said I couldn't. He wanted to let my body grow, and so I used to go up there and sign on a different name and play the game because you loved it. And then of course, someone knew who I was, and that was the end of that. I had to actually sign up, so I played a year there. And it's funny, I think I won my first ever grand final when I was 7, and I never won another one until I won with the Brisbane Broncos. So there was a lot of gap in between, and I played a lot of teams that struggled, which probably kept me grounded a lot, because we just didn't win every game that I ever played in. Played in a lot of different positions growing up to fill the void from other people. It was just good times. I remember playing in Stanthorpe, and we had a couple of us that, I played with Tony Herman that played for the Knights. First grade, I had another guy played reserve grade at the Knights, and we're still best mates to this day. And then we had some okay players, and then we just had some guys that made up the numbers, which you always do when you're in the country. And I thought all we wanted to do was do our best for those guys to experience something very special. And that was part of our team, but we wanted to help to take them too. But we just never, we made a major semi, but we got beaten. But we said that those times are very memorable. They're all still, great mates of mine. We still always reminisce about those times and what it meant. And those times then makes you enjoy the greater moments as you go on. It keeps you grounded, keeps you humble.
When you go back to when the limo turned up for you to sign the first contract with the Broncos as a teenager, and then fast forward through 274 games, premierships, the first of the originals, the last of the originals to finish at the club, and you're still involved at the club. What does that mean to you?
Look, I love my job. My dad always drilled to me, if you can find a job that you love, that's half your battle. And I've had that all the way through. Playing football, enjoy it. It's got to be enjoyment. It's got to be a fun element to it, or else it gets very boring very, very quickly. I have a lot of respect for everyone that plays the game and everything that we did. Like I said, he always said I was a hard worker, and it would be that. But I don't remember being that. He said you made a lot of sacrifices. I don't remember that. I do now, little things that I do and how you do it. But now the experiences that I have, to help other people, and I now know the stats and how hard it is to become an NRL player. So my job is now to not to tell them, yep, they're going to be a rugby league player, but to be the best person you can be, be that best version of yourself every day. Now you see some humbling people like Cameron Smith, for instance, played the most games in the NRL. I don't know. I probably won't see it in my lifetime. It might get beaten. I don't know. Played the most Origin games. Played the most Test matches. Now, he's still working to this day. He's working on Channel 9 and he's doing something he loves. So I'm thinking that I've got to educate these guys about, how difficult and how hard it's going to be to get that opportunity. So when you do get that opportunity, you've got to enjoy every single moment of it because you don't know when it can get taken off you. Jarrell Yohe, for instance, just playing for Queensland, Australia, it got taken off him, in one foul swoop, and he still struggles to this day about how it happened, and it happened so young. So enjoy every moment of it. Be humble because it's you can have good times, you can have bad times, and it's one of those things that can come back and get you very quickly. But be the best version of yourself because that's forever. Where sport, rugby league is for a short period of time in our life, but the person that we are and who you'll get remembered by is the person that you are, and that's why I want to get remembered by. It's not, the football was great and was fantastic, and I played some great teams. I have no regrets out of everything that I've done in my football life, but I want to be remembered by being, hey, Mick Hancock was a good person, because that's what lasts forever. And I've got some great mates in the game, and like some really tough guys, like Blocker. You look at those synonymous guys in rugby league. I earned his respect, and every time I see him, he gives me a big bear cuddle. I'm thinking, how good is that? We come from different teams, different states, but we're such good friends, because it does unite us as well as players. Yet we go out there, that's our job. We play it hard, but afterwards we come together because we're friends.
Who had the biggest influence on your career?
Probably my dad. My dad was that influence to keep me motivated, to keep me humble, keep me grounded, all those. But I had my first coach. His name was Graham Barry, and I went down the first time. And look, I wasn't a big football watcher, so it wasn't, oh, Mum, I want to go and play rugby league. They just said, we want you to play some team sport, and rugby league, they chose it. And I went down, and I'd come home bawling my eyes out, and they'd talk to him, and they said, look, I think he's got something, just keep bringing him back. And and we've been friends. And I remember when he'd finished coaching, anyway, he ended up in Stanthorpe as well at the same time, can you believe it? But when I come back he was still living in Brisbane. When I went to Stanthorpe, he was still in Brisbane. So when I come back, I had nowhere to go, and I didn't know where I was going. And he helped support me. He took me to training and brought me back until I knew where I was going and where to go. And I stayed at their place for a little bit. He's just passed away just recently. So those people that have that influence on your life, you've got those memories forever. And then Wayne was that next person. And that's why Wayne's been such a great coach for a long period of time. It's not the footballing. It's because he cares about each and every person under his care. Now, whether you play first grade, reserve grade, or A grade like we had back in those days, he cared about everyone off the field. And I think that's why a lot of people, would do a lot of things and make a lot of sacrifices to be involved in his team.
Well, Mick Hancock, congratulations on a wonderful career, and thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.